Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, a ship in a bottle. Well, truth be told, this project has been on my list of ones to do for about 2 years, and I finally got tired of seeing it sitting on that list, and I thought now is the time to do it. Now, it's going to be a multi-part series where I would like to cover everything from materials to procedures to the tools you'll need to the methods of making the ship and getting it into the bottle. I basically want to cover it all so that by the end of the series, you guys will have all the resources you need to be able to make your own project. So, where do we start with this? Well, it all starts with choosing your bottle. Well, this is the bottle that I have chosen for my project, and it's a classic shape and style for the ship in a bottle. There are certain things that you want to look for when it comes to choosing the bottle for your project. One is you want a fairly large opening here for the throat or the neck of your bottle. This is where your ship is going to get inserted. There's none of this stuff that they talk about where you cut the bottom out of it and all of that. If you're doing it that way, then you're not doing it quite right. So you need a fairly large neck bottle. You can do it with thinner necks. It just means that you have to insert the ship in stages instead of in one piece. So you can get away with a more narrow bottle as well if your neck is stubby. If it's a short little stubby neck, you can kind of finagle it a little better. You can have interesting shaped bottles. You can put it in any bottle you want as long as the glass is clear and it's going to give a clear view and an undistorted view of your project. Now, you want to keep in mind that the older the bottle, the more distorted the glass is going to be. The old techniques of making bottles, of course, had quite a few imperfections in the glass, and it can distort your project, but it can also give a very interesting effect. The other thing you want to consider is shape. Do you want a round bottle or a square bottle? If you have a square bottle, when you sit it down with your ship in it, it will stand and stay on its own. Whereas a round bottle like mine here, you're going to have to fabricate some kind of a stand to hold it in place to display your project. So other than those few things there, the sky's the limit for your shape and size of bottle. Just remember that the size and the shape of the bottle will dictate the size and the shape of your ship, making it either easier or harder to work on. A smaller ship is a little more difficult. As the ships get bigger, they're a lot more forgiving to work with. So you've chosen your bottle. Well, now what? Now what you need to do is you need to decide what type of ship you're going to make. But if you've chosen an old bottle, like an antique or one that you've had around for several years, you want to give the bottle a good washing at this point in time to make sure that there are no stains. You can place a white piece of paper behind it and you can readily see if there are any stains there that are going to take away from your project. Just a little bit of dish detergent, a powder type does work better as it has a bit more abrasive qualities, but you can get the inside and outside of that glass bottle nice and clean and let it dry for quite some time. Don't just suddenly start working on it. I'm not going to be washing mine until I'm ready to insert my ship, mainly because it's a new bottle and I already checked it for stains. I'm not going to be manhandling it and then getting fingerprints all over it and then having to wash the whole thing again. The only purpose for washing it is if it's an older one, just to see if it's suitable. Well, you now have your bottle chosen, you have it cleaned so that you know it's suitable and no stains, and now it's time to choose the ship. There are schooners, sloops, battleships, windjammers, ketch. There's all kinds of different ships. You have to decide what type and how much work you want to put in it. If you have fore and aft mounted sails, or if you have square sails, they get done completely differently as far as the spars are attached to the masts. So there's quite a bit of thought process that needs to go in. I would suggest that if you are a beginner, or if this is something new to you, that you choose a schooner style boat with fore and aft rigged sails. It's a little easier than the square mounted sails, and as well, that's what I'm going to be doing here on the show today, so you'll get the idea and have an example to follow along with. So now that you know some of the things that you need to consider when choosing the type of boat, what about the construction materials as far as the hull and that sort of thing? Honestly, you can use whatever type of wood you want. You can use maple, walnut, cherry, mahogany. You can use anything you like. However, those harder woods are harder to work with on this small scale, and they may cause you some grief. You're better off to go towards the softer woods, being basswood, pine, balsa, that sort of thing. Those are the type of woods that will really lend themselves to an easy working project when it comes to designing and making the hull of your ship. If you feel like using a hardwood, okay, fine. At least use something that's a little softer on the scale of hardwoods, like poplar, which lends itself very well to being sanded and to accepting paint, and as well, it's fairly easy to carve and work with. Well, now that we know the bottle that we've got, we know the size of the neck of the bottle, we know it's suitable, we've chosen our ship, and we now know what type of materials to start making the hull out of, I can stop all the preliminary information and we can get into the designing of the ship. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to head over to the bench and we're going to make a sketch of what we'd like to see inside that bottle. Well, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to sketch out your boat. You want to sketch out the ship and make sure that it is how you like it, that it's how it's shaped, and it's the way that you want the boat to look. Now, it doesn't have to be a perfect sketch. This is just to give yourself an idea of how it's going to fit into your bottle. You want to include in your sketch all of your masts and your sails, because this is what's going to let you know, this sketch will be your reference point as you go to be able to know if you're on track and if this thing is going to fit in your bottle the way that you want it to. Okay, so my sails are a little wonky, but that's okay. We'll fix that up later. Now, I'm not going to try to fool you and say that I'm drawing this out of the top of my head. I've looked at an awful lot of pictures of these boats over the last little while, and prior to starting filming, I laid out on here some key points that I would need to connect in order to make this ship. Okay, so this is roughly, and I do mean roughly, what my ship is going to look like inside the bottle. Things may change, and of course there's going to be rigging where this here will come down and this will connect between the two masts. All of your main lines, there'll also be the rat lines that come down here off of the mast to support it side to side. So you get the idea. There's going to be a lot more than just this rough sketch. But now we can get our bottle and compare to see Number one, is it going to fit? Number two, is it going to look okay? Now, I'm not sure how well this shows on camera because there may be quite a bit of glare from the lighting, but this will fit just fine in our bottle. Now, there's one thing that you want to consider when designing your hull, and it's extremely important that you base your hull design on what I'm about to tell you now, and that is the size of your bottle opening. So if this is your bottle opening and you need to get your boat in here, your hull should be no bigger than half the dimension of this opening. So this should be your hull. This area up here is going to be used to get your masts, your sails, your flags, your rigging, etc., etc. in through the bottle. But your hull should not be any bigger than half the size of your bottle opening. If it is, you're going to need to divide your hull into sections and insert them one by one and install them inside the bottle, assemble them inside, and that can be a little tedious. But for now, we're going to keep it simple and keep our hull design to 1/2 of the neck diameter. Well, before we can start making the hull, we need to make a working stand. And what this will be is basically a platform that our boat will sit on to give us both a means to hold it in our hand to work on it, as well as clamp it in a vise without damage. So I'm going to start marking here. I have a scrap piece of poplar. I don't even know really how long it is. I guess I could tell you. It's roughly 10.5 inches long. It's probably a little overkill for this, but I'm going to place a mark here so that we're left with roughly, and I mean roughly, 2 inches in the middle. I'm going to mark a line roughly, and again I say roughly, 2 inches down from the top. And then I'm going to make a line 1 inch above that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off so that it's a square end, and we're going to take this over to the scroll saw and get rid of these waste areas right here. But on our top section, where our 1 inch line is, we're going to take it over to the sander and we're going to taper this in to a flat point. And I'll show you that in just a second. So first off, let's get this end trimmed off here, and I'm just going to do that at the table saw. Well, I have cut the end square and I've transferred our 1 inch line right here, and then what I've done is I've left a little flat spot at the top and tapered a line into that from each point down here at the 1 inch by the edge of the board. I'm going to take this over to the belt sander and I'm going to sand this taper off. And at that point in time, once we get this sanded, we can take the whole piece over to the scroll saw. Well, just before I cut this out, there's one thing I forgot to mention, and that is that I've drilled a couple of 5/32 inch diameter holes here on the wings of our stand, and that is because we will be screwing our hull to the top of this while we work on it. But now with a number 7 reverse tooth blade, I'm just going to cut away the waste areas and then our stand will be done. Well, now it's time to start working on our hull, and this is where the real fun begins. I have chosen basswood to make mine out of. It's a great carving wood. It's a very tight grain, and it accepts paint well, it sands well, and honestly, it's just nice and soft and easy to work with. I have it cut to the dimensions that I need for my hull. It's 7/8 of an inch wide and it is 5/8 of an inch thick. Now what I've done is I refined the shape and the lines on my hull design, and I ended up cutting out of some MDF or hardboard. I ended up cutting a couple of templates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace the design of the top view of my hull down onto my blank of basswood. And now, using a square, I'm going to transfer my bow and my stern lines. There's the tip of my bow, tip of the stern. I'm going to transfer them onto our side profile because we also need to draw that as well. And for that, I've also refined my design and made a side view template as well. And we'll just trace that out. Well, before you do any cutting, it's important to check your blade for square. We're going to be using a method called compound cutting here, and having a square blade is absolutely crucial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut our side profile first. Don't forget to save your offcuts. Now at this point, we're going to use a little bit of clear tape. You can use packing tape, you can even use masking tape, but I find that clear tape is better for this because you can see your pattern through it. And we're going to tape our piece back together so that section that's separated there while cutting the side profile, we're going to put it back together to form one piece again. And once we get it securely taped together, now we're going to cut out our top profile. And once you get those pieces cut, you can remove your tape and you should be left with the rough shape of your hull. And unfortunately, guys, that's all the time that we have for this week. Now, it may not look like we got much done, but think about this now. There's a lot of information that's here in this show, between picking your bottle and what to look for, the stock that you would choose, drawing out or sketching your boat, choosing the type of boat, and then of course the compound cutting on the scroll saw to get the rough shape of our hull. There is so much more to come on this project, and I'm not changing the pace of it. I'm going to keep it slow and steady so that we get all the information we can into this series and make it so that you have the confidence to make your own ship in a bottle. Because guys, if you're not trying this out, you're really denying yourself one heck of a lot of fun. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell so that you don't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. This has been a great day in the shop. I hope that you've enjoyed the content. I hope that you're going to try this for yourself. And I also hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesdays.